You know, you bring up a point that I have certainly heard among some friends of mine just asking this question, you know, who is it to decide at the end of the day who lives, who dies, who gets this drug if in fact it, you know, manages to help these Americans or not?
Right. Well, that is the obvious question. And certainly no one intends to withhold the drug from Africans. But for economic and historical reasons, that is precisely what tends to happen. It's not an accident that they so far have not had access to it, which I hope will change as more becomes available. There are economic reasons, a network to which Westerners tend to have access, but not people from developing countries, that influences who gets scarce drugs.
Let me flip the script, because we could be having, Harriet, a very different discussion if the headline instead were experimental drug only used in monkeys now being tested on West Africans. I mean, I think that there would be outrage that people would be saying they're being used as guinea pigs.
Well, those people would be wrong because it happens all the time. We have to remember that the way our system of testing drugs is designed, some people are always the first to get a drug. And increasingly, those people are people in the developing world, where now 2 out of every 5 clinical trials are being held in the developing world. So it's frequently the case that these people are the first to get a drug that's been tested in animals. And that's perfectly acceptable. We've decided those are acceptable risks. What is important and what is not acceptable sometimes is the way in which the trials are administered and conducted.
What about the drug maker itself and the fact that, you know, this had only been tested, according to Sanjay Gupta, you know, in monkeys, and now this is the first time it's being used in humans? Your point just being that this happens, we just don't talk about it as often?
No, my point is that this is actually more akin to the normal course of things than it looks. Our clinical trials are set up so that every drug that is tested in humans has to first be tested in animals. But if you think about it, some group of humans is always the first group to get the drug tested in them before any other humans. So there's always a case that there are people who are initially tested. The questions arise when who these people are seems to be a product of some kind of bias, whether it's intentional or economic or some other kind of bias. And when the testing violates ethical principles that are very well entrenched, like informed consent. What we are frequently hearing about in the third world are trials where there's not informed consent, as we would expect to have in Connecticut. Someone explain to us, according to our laws, what the drug is, what the known side effects are, what the possible results of taking the drug are, all the possible options of taking the drug. These are very carefully spelled out in our law, in the Code of Federal Regulations. But once researchers begin testing drugs abroad, all too often, these rules fall by the wayside. And there's not as much oversight, so it's easy to cut corners abroad. That is actually the problem, not the fact that some group of people becomes the first group to get the medication.
I've got it.